people hear fierce and they think, oh, aggressive, assertive, I'm fierce. And to me, truly, fierce is, if you look up the definition, part of it is fiery, and it's that fiery, passionate, purpose filled energy that we all have inside of us. And it is being more authentically, becoming as authentic as you can so that you are living your life in full expression of you.
Hello, and welcome to episode 139 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review. That would mean a lot to me. Tell a friend about the podcast. Help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Stephanie James is a seasoned psychotherapist and transformation coach, a dynamic public speaker, published author, and filmmaker. Stephanie delivers her message in a powerful way to help others find their own internal sparks, break through limiting beliefs, and create an empowered life full of passion and possibility. Her new film, When Sparks Ignite, hosts a highly reputable cast of international thought leaders and changemakers. Its powerful message is about how the challenges we face can actually become the match point that ignites something within that becomes our gift to the world. Her latest book, Becoming Fierce, takes the reader through a compelling and dynamic journey to expand personal power, purge what doesn't serve us, and design an authentic life that is deeply fulfilling. With profound wisdom and decades of research, Stephanie gives her readers a North Star to guide them to solid shores, thrive through challenging times, cultivate strength and courage, and create substantial change in their lives. Stephanie has an unrelenting commitment and personal passion to bring as much love and healing to the world as possible. Her work has ignited the sparks in thousands of others to create powerful change in their lives and change their pain into possibilities. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Stephanie. Stephanie, it's so great to have you on.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you, David. Thank you.
So I was just recently on your show, Igniting the Spark. We had a wonderful conversation, especially about yourself as an extrovert to me as an introvert conversation and just understanding our differences. And I love that conversation.
I did as well. I really felt like I truly learned so much from you in that episode. I love that you were debunking a lot of the myths on introverts and really highlighting the gifts beyond the stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to definitely get into your work. You've written a couple books, you're a filmmaker, psychotherapist. It's a lot around igniting the spark, like the name of your podcast, Becoming Fierce. We're going to talk all about that. But first, let's hear a little bit about your journey to doing this great work that you're doing now.
Well, thank you. Like everyone, I think none of us get out of life unscathed. And sometimes there can be that myth that because you have all these products, if you will, in the world, you're doing all these things in the world, that life's been pretty easy for you. And honestly, David, it was for the first 13 years of my life. I kind of had this golden childhood. And I write about it in my last book, my latest book, Becoming Fierce, because I felt it was important to share this story of little girl, sweetest family, very intact, had this, truly love affair with my dad when I was a little girl, those innocent love affairs where I would just follow him around like his little shadow. And if he was, getting the leaves off the lawn, I was there helping him bag them and rake them up. And I followed him around so much that I was the little kid that sat on the bathroom counter while he shaved. And I would have him put shaving cream on my face. And every day I would shave my face with a little plastic toothbrush holder. But it was just this kind of surrounded by family, surrounded by relatives, so much time in the Colorado mountains. And all of that, David, really in one moment was completely shattered and irreversibly broken. And to not go too far into detail, but just to kind of skim along the surface, this great childhood. In one night, my father said to my mom, "I'm in love with someone else." And really, everything just exploded in my life. And before I knew it, I was, with my dad. I naturally went with my dad because I was so close with him, and I had a new stepmom. And the rules were I couldn't be alone with my dad. I couldn't talk to him alone.
Wow.
Up until the day he died, I wasn't allowed to speak to him alone on the phone. And so what started happening inside of me is like feeling something was wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. I felt like I'd lost love. And it got worse when I decided to stay in Fort Collins, where I had grown up in Colorado at 16 when they moved to Austin. And when I decided not to go with them, my father stopped speaking to me for a year. And I share all this story because I went from being this very confident little girl who was in every sport. I did tap dancing, jazz, ballet. I played the piano, the flute, the violin. I mean, I was, as well as softball and soccer and basketball, I was very, lit up as a kiddo. And my life just, I mean, I was just for the next probably 15 years searching, trying to earn love. I really felt unlovable. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I just, do the right things and get good grades and, dress well enough and look good enough, then I'll be lovable. And it wasn't until an early event in my early 30s, an event in my early 30s, where I was just woken up. And it was through you, I think you saw it, David, in the film. I speak of it a little bit in my film, When Sparks Ignite, being at a retreat in San Francisco and having the presenter stop in the middle of what he's saying. And he looks out into the audience and says, "Hey, you in the blue coat." And I look around and I'm like, "Oh, I'm the one in the blue coat." And he said, "I have a message for you." Well, and the story goes on to, I couldn't hear his message. He had to repeat it 3 times. And by the third time, all of the air conditioning units in the place went on and nobody could hear him. So people are laughing. And my friend beside me is like, "What is going on?" And he calls me up on stage with him. And I sit on these stairs by the stage. And he says, "My dear, the message that is so hard for you to hear that I'm trying to tell you is stop trying. Stop trying." He said, "You've been trying your whole life to be perfect." Like, I don't know how he knew this, but wow, just through a handshake and introduction, I felt like this man read my soul. And he just said, "Stop trying. You've tried to be perfect your whole life for your father. Now you're doing it for your husband. Stop trying." And that began this journey of really being able to befriend myself and knowing that, wow, all these outside things I've been trying to get, none of those would ever work, that it was actually an inside job. And that
Wow.
began, yeah, this huge journey, not only into healing myself, but through my career, acquiring the wisdom, acquiring whatever research I could get my hands on, not only to help me heal, but how can I help others heal as well? So that kind of that's the story.
Thank you for sharing your story. And, we all have different stories, and those stories are what gets us to the spark, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today, I don't think. Not that I would ever wish anything negative like that to happen, but through that experience, and I think I've gained a depth of understanding and compassion and empathy that's allowed me to be a truly effective psychotherapist or transformation coach or just human being because I have experienced some of those depths and I've experienced some of the most wonderful. I mean, I always feel like I had this great inner stuffing. I had so much love and so much connection as a kiddo. And so it's really helped me to help others like go back to what I believe is our true spark, which is our essence, and that's the part that no matter what circumstances we go to or what happens in our lives, it might feel like it's covered up, But our job is really, our work is how do we excavate that to get to what truly is always there? It never leaves us.
Yeah, everybody has such different experiences, but everybody goes through a difficult journey. I'm pretty sure everybody does. But how are some people not ever getting to that place of igniting their spark, of turning that journey into a spark?
I think from my experience and what I understand with people, and when I've worked with people that are therapy resistant, if you will, what often happens is because we have this natural negativity bias in our brains are always looking, that primitive part of our brain is always looking for a threat. And so if we let that just go unchecked and we don't deal with the chatter in our minds, then some of those early messages that we got as kiddos, which no matter how awesome our childhood was, they're not always going to be favorable. And so the negative beliefs, if we just allow those to be our inner chatter and do nothing about them, then we are going to be stuck. Growth, personal growth, expansion, it takes effort. And so we can't just go on automatic pilot. And I think when people sometimes get to the place where they're hurting enough, they'll put the work in. They're willing to put the work in. And I would love that paradigm to change, that we don't have to suffer in order to grow. We can grow in awareness and then say, hey, wow, these beliefs or this behavior isn't working for me. And here are the things I can do to change it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Too often it's you have to hit that rock bottom in order to decide I'm going to do something different. I can't do this anymore. But wouldn't it be so much better if we all came to a self-awareness, learned from our struggles, and ignited that spark? And the spark is going to be different for all of us, right? We each have our own gifts that we bring.
Absolutely. And this kind of goes back to some of our introvert extrovert conversation, because I am such a far end extrovert that for me, igniting the spark, my mom always says if I don't show up at a family gathering for some reason, if I have a prior commitment, she's like, oh, we missed our spark plug. And that was way before the spark was branded.
Yeah.
So I have a very high energy. I think I vibrate at a very high frequency. And that doesn't mean that, I think, again, other people igniting their spark, if you're introverted, that might look really different. It might feel like freedom inside of you. It might feel like clarity inside of you. It's going to be a really different expression, and they're all wonderful when you truly start doing that work and feeling those sparks ignite.
Yeah. Yeah. The spark might just be a little more on the inside, but it's a spark nonetheless. Define that spark just a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel like it is our essence. I really do. And for me, it's a divine spark. So it's the some people might call it spirit. I've heard people call it, God spark. I don't want the language to messy it up. It doesn't. I think it's like our true life force. It's that spirit that we're born into the world with. And I've heard it said, I some old yogini, I think, was talking about this spark inside of us and saying it's the part of us that water can't wet, fire can't burn it out, and wind can't blow out the flame. So it's our true self. To me, it's that authentic self beyond, again, cultural conditioning, even beyond how we define ourselves by our thoughts or our emotions or our behaviors. I just think it's that glowing essence that's very pure, always there. And it is truly always accessible, even if we have to do a lot of excavation to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my favorite words right now, authenticity. And it's part of the work that I do. And I think I probably said this on your show. It's not all introverts that struggle with our authenticity. It's some because they don't understand themselves. And that's part of it, is understanding you have great gifts. They may not look like somebody else's gift. Right before the show, we were talking about preparation, and I really have to think about the podcast or a speech, or I was just on a panel yesterday. I have to think ahead of time, what, and it's not scripted, but what are the kinds of things that I want to do? It has to happen ahead of time for the most part. And in your case, you're going to do some of that, but you're going to also be a lot more spontaneous, and gifts come from that. And so there's definitely, it's just different. That spark, I agree, it's in us. I call it divine as well. It's something that is unique, but something that's meant to be shared, a unique gift to the world, really.
Well, and thanks for saying that, because I think that's one of the essential pieces for me as well. It's one of the things that I think I say at some point during the film. It's like that we never know the sparks we might ignite in one another. And I truly do believe that, like, as we do our own work, and again, I write about this, in my latest book, it's that process of befriending yourself, allowing yourself to be a priority enough in your life that you start really taking care of yourself. And as you heal, that's actually the gift. As you ignite your spark, you are giving that gift to the world. You become a clearer conduit for that love and healing, whatever that is, to come through you. And your gifts, those authentic gifts, those authentic pieces of who you are, then truly, I don't want to overuse this analogy, but it is. It's like those are the golden threads in the tapestry of humanity. I really believe that. And that's how we can help one another heal.
Yeah. And again, I thought we had a really good extrovert to introvert conversation. Did you have some other takeaways from the episode where we talked?
Well, I think one of the things that was important to me was understanding some of the ways that you prepare. I don't think that was something I thought about. I think, I said during our interview, wow, I even as a psychotherapist, I feel like I was limited in my true understanding, and we hear so much about, oh, introverts need to recharge by themselves and extroverts recharge around people, and how that is like the most limited view of what introversion
Oh,
is.
thank you for sharing that again. That's what people say, and I'm like, that doesn't help me. Sure, I do need to recharge, absolutely, and not from all people. I don't know if I said this on your show, but my wife is a fellow introvert. Never drains me. In fact, she energizes me. I love spending time with her. So to say that I'm always drained by people, it's not true. And she's not the only one, but she never drains me. Certain people in certain situations do. So that's great. But there's so much more to it than that. And I hear people say that all the time. And it's almost like when they say that definition, it's almost like saying, yeah, we're okay. But to me, it's like, you're much better than okay. You're brilliant. You're wonderful. You need to embrace the spark that's you. And it's not just that you get drained by people. So thank you for sharing that again. That's a big part of my message. It's that definition is so limiting. And sure, there's truth in there, but it's not enough.
Well, and absolutely. And the thing that for me too, I get drained by some people as well. I
Yeah.
need my alone time every day.
Right, right.
And so the similarities were also something that were remarkable to me. And, our conversation you were just alluding to before, the interview, which was you were talking about how you were prepared and how you'd been preparing things. And I was like, okay, don't tell me, because I am so much more spontaneous. And yet what I said to you was true. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need people like you in my world. And I think that's one of the important pieces. Like, we need one another. I need people in my life that really plan things out and really think things through. And I love that one of the things I truly learned from you was a little bit more about that inner process to go within, and how you then, okay, now I have this idea of what this is going to look like. And this makes it so much more comfortable to begin. And that neither one of these are right or wrong. There's not one that's good or bad or better than the other. It's just who we are. And I love that. That's talking about our authentic selves. It's embracing, like, yeah, this is how I do it. I don't need to do it like Stephanie. I don't need to do it like David. I'm going to do it however I do it. So
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
important. Yeah.
How do you help people become self-aware?
Wow. That's a great question. Man, I don't know. You say that and I go, I don't know. Um, I The first thing I go to is my therapy office. So people can only be as self-aware as they are capable of being open in the moment. So if I'm working with someone, this is not true. I have not worked with this person, but let's say that someone was a true narcissistic personality disorder. We know one of the things about that disorder is they don't have the capacity for insight or compassion. So someone like that, or empathy. And so it's going to be really difficult for that person to gain insight into their behavior. I do think, though, when people are open and willing to show up, I think one of the ways that we can help people gain insight is through active listening, truly active, where you're out of your head, you're in your heart, you're really holding space to listen to that person. And then you're reflecting and asking questions that just help them find the answers themselves. You're not imparting wisdom on someone. I mean, once in a while, you're sharing an idea, or you're sharing, oh, this is something that really, was important in my life. And, what do you think about this? And I wonder how this lands with you. That's all great. But it truly is, it's got to be that person being willing to be open. And then we kind of hold the mirror and ask the questions that help them to dive deeper.
I just recently watched your film, When Sparks Ignite. I loved it. It was great. Tell us a little bit more about that film and the message behind it, how it came about.
So thank you. I'm so glad that you liked it. It was such a passion project for me. And literally that film happened after a meditation. I can remember exactly where I was sitting. It was an evening after work. I got done with meditating and literally had this download like, oh my gosh, I know some of the most brilliant minds and serving hearts on the planet. And I need to bring them together for this event. Now, what's interesting is that at the time, I had just gone through a divorce and I had probably 67 cents in my savings account. So for me to get the idea like, oh, I'm going to create a film and I'm going to have these people that are huge thought leaders internationally come together, there was only one thing that could have done that, which to me is this, divine intervention, because everything happened serendipitously. The films, the thing that I was passionate about is this films helping people to understand that it is the difficult and challenging times that we face that can become that match point that ignites something within us that then does become our gift to the world. And as I spoke to people, these incredible thought leaders, Larry Dossey, Jacob Israel Lieberman, Stephanie Schwartz, people that have done incredible work in this world and spoken to hundreds of thousands of people, Misa Hopkins, just this, Sedina and George Caponelli, who are big television and film producers. As I spoke with these people, everyone was on board. These people get paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak, and they all came for free. And the idea was everyone came 3 days ahead of time so we could have our own event first, because that was one of the essential pieces to me, is that most times people come and you hire presenters and they come and they get on stage and they talk for 45 minutes and they walk off. Nobody knows one another. There's no bond made there. There's nothing but the gift they're giving to the audience. And what would happen if we did that first? And so that's what happened. And we caught it all on film. Not only did I do these amazing individual interviews where people are sharing, these people that you never hear that, you just hear what an incredible physician they are, or they're an incredible thought leader and change maker in consciousness, or whatever it is, like Stephen A. Schwartz. He was on Leonard Nimoy's Deep Quest on a submarine and has literally done huge change in our world. Regardless, bringing these people together and they're sharing some of the deep pains of their life and then how they overcame that. And so through these days of, we ate together, we danced together, we made music together, we meditated together, we all formed this amazing group. There were 12 of us. And the second day, we all sat around a round table. And as you know, we called it Lights of the Round Table.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great title.
It's so fun, and so you get to be a fly on the wall and hear these conversations between these thought leaders who are just super, just regular, ordinary, also humble people. And so they're again sharing, like, how do you take the long view? What is resiliency? How do we get past these stumbling blocks? And what is love? Not romantic love, but what really is love to you? And how do we enact social change? How can we be a part of the change? And so the third day, we brought it to a live audience of 150 people, and everyone did their presentation. And instead of leaving after they spoke, they sat in the audience. They were a part of the experience. And it's giving me the chills actually right now, just remembering it, because it was so special. And that's what we've caught on film, and really helping, hopefully, people to know, again, their healing matters. If you look at the film poster, it says right there, your period healing period matters, period. It's the only thing besides the title on the film.
So there was definitely some honest and human conversations about their struggles that maybe they're not sharing all the time. So you had this great idea to bring all these people together. Did it go as planned, or was there things that you just learned that you didn't expect?
It was better than I could have ever imagined. Number
Okay.
one, I mean, I was so blown away by people's kindness. I was so blown away by, again, just the serendipity. I felt like I would meet with one person, like I spoke with Jacob Israel Lieberman, and he'd been on the show 3 times. He and I had become really good friends. And I said, hey, I'm going to go down to Santa Fe to visit Misa Hopkins and her husband Jeff. And he said, oh, well, you know who lives there? Larry Dossie and his wife, and George and Sedina Caponelli. So reach out to them. And I reached out to these people as perfect strangers, and Larry was like, yeah, let's go out for dinner. And Sedina and George were like, yeah, let's meet for breakfast. And that meeting with Sedina and George, they said, hey, they've been doing films for PBS for decades. And they said, hey, let us connect you with our award-winning film crew. And I mean, things just came together. And so it was more than I could have expected. I think one of the things I learned about myself, David, was that is such a natural environment for me. Being, directing things, being with the camera crew, really helping cultivate this. And then the editing process, which happened during COVID, to be able to feel like I had never, of course, made a film at the time. I think I had just written my first book. And what was so beautiful is, again, it was like a divine download. At the end of those 3 days, I was given a black film box that had all the film contained in it. And then I was given a transcript, and it was like, okay, create the film.
Wow.
And it was, yeah, it was an amazing process. And I just feel so blessed. I have to give kudos to Doug Beechwood, my co-producer, who was with me every step of the way. He had the editing board. He would put it on the screen, and I would just say, okay, cut, cut. We would just watch these 4 strips of film streaming, and spent so many hours. So many kudos to him. What an amazing creator. What an amazing film director he is.
So what do you hope that people walk away from watching your film?
I hope that they come away, again, I mean, that the big message about your healing matters, and that no matter where you are in your life, no matter what the circumstances are, we really do have the ability to heal. We have the ability to change, and it's essential. I hope people walk away knowing your healing is essential. What you contribute to this world is essential, and each person matters. Nobody's exempt. And so I think more than ever, we really need to be focused on our similarities. We need to be focused on how we can communicate and connect. And we really need to focus on, how do I continue healing? it's a lifelong process. We never arrive. And so I think of it as let's each one of us clear out the cobwebs that show up, in this conduit that's our lives, so that we can truly heal, help ourselves, and help others. And truly, I think that's the ticket.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So often I think people think there is a point that you arrive and you're done. And and I heard you say that and I was just thinking about that this morning. It's like I feel like I have a message, and I really started sharing this message about 10 years ago, but it just continues to evolve. And part of it is having great guests on like yourself, where we have these great conversations and it just continues to, improve on my thinking and how we can make things better. But, there's so often people think, "Oh, well, you're done, your message," but it's never going to be done, right?
Yeah, yeah, no way. I think for all of us, we're going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to grow. We're not any different than nature. We literally we are a part of nature, so we're going to continue to grow. And just like nature, I always think about this: when a tree loses a limb, there's this it's like a salve or something that comes over that wound to help it heal, so that the tree doesn't die from losing a limb. And the same is true for us. When we get cut, we don't have to focus on that cut and say heal, heal, heal.
Yeah.
There's some divine essence within us that is helping us to heal. So we're always moving towards healing. Our whole lives, we're always moving towards growing. And like you, David, when we have a passion and we want to share that with the world, it might come in some different forms as we evolve. There might be little, different messages. Right now, I'm getting ready in February. I'm doing a women's retreat in Sayulita, Mexico, and it's igniting your sparks. And it's focusing so much on fun and friendship and really that deeper purpose, if you will, that deeper way that we can befriend ourselves. Um, and it's got other things that I hadn't put in other retreats. It's got yoga, it's got movement. We're doing this really cool sound healing on the beach at sunset. There's going to be some really cool cacao ceremony, which I've never done. Beautiful parts of that. So, I'm always growing. I always want to keep expanding. Like, what am I offering people? What is it that right now I'm hearing feedback about, like, wow, this is really helping people heal or grow? And I literally just got done listening to Ethan Kross's book, Chatter. And I could not tell you, I could not write enough notes. It's like, oh my gosh, wonderful. Now this helps me. Now I have these tools in my toolbox to share.
What's that book about? What's the main message of it?
Well, I love it. It really gives us some essentials of how to quiet, like I was talking about earlier, that negative chatter that we can all have, and we all do have. Nobody also is exempt from this negative chatter. And it's when we say, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or the inner chatter of not being good enough. And I can tell you, David, I have worked with CEOs and brain surgeons all the way to, railroad workers and people that came in and I saw for free because they didn't have money. No matter who they were, what walk of life they came from, everyone's internal message at some point is around this not being good enough. And so that book is addressing that inner chatter that tells us that and gives specific researched tools of how to stop the chatter. And literally, it's applicable. There's inside things we can do, like speaking to yourself in third person, like you would say, David, you don't have to be different than who you are. You already got this. You're fine. You're good. And you know what? You're more than good, as a way of helping that inner voice quiet down when it acts up. Or it was talking about outside things you can do. We know when we go outside and connect to nature, we feel better. Something happens in our brain. We go into a different brainwave state. And nature literally takes from us negative ions. So when we have that experience, even walking around the block, that inner chatter is going to quiet down. So it's beautiful, brilliant. I can't say enough about it. Chock full of tools. It's great for anyone.
Yeah. And that's just as we were talking about, we never stop growing. You probably already had some amazing tools to help people with that type of thing, but you're just expanding your tools, with this other author. And that's awesome. I think introverts have even a bigger problem with it because we live in our heads. And I think that
Mhm.
chatter can be more, we could talk about that some other time, but I think it can be worse. And we do need to come up with some tools to give ourselves good messages and, overcome any limiting beliefs that we have.
Absolutely. And I would dovetail on that and say to your listeners, it's important that you find out what are your limiting beliefs. Because it might just be unconscious things that are kind of rattling around your noggin that you're not even aware of. You become, we're such habitual thinkers. I was hearing Joe Dispenza yesterday saying, we think 90% of the same thoughts we thought the day before, unless we're active at wanting to change them. So I would say becoming aware of what your limiting beliefs are and then being very clear about what you want them to be instead. And so you can interrupt those habitual thoughts so much easier once you're aware of them. And people can kind of poo poo affirmations, and say, oh, affirmations. And they're important because you have thought that negative thought so many hundreds of thousands of times that it's become literally there's a crust that builds up over that neural pathway called the myelin sheath. And so it makes those thoughts, that's what makes them instantaneous. The thing that's beautiful is that we can start breaking up that crust just by catching it. When we catch that it's happened and we're conscious of it, the power of the present moment is that we can change the channel.
Yeah, and even when you're saying that, I kind of had a new thought. It's like, well, yeah, you need positive affirmations because the ones that you're already giving yourself, or you're already giving yourself affirmations, they're just negative, right?
That's
And
exactly
so you
it.
just need to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have more power than we realize if we're willing to do the work. 21 to 30 days of being conscious about the thoughts you want to change, writing those down, those affirmations in positive present tense language, and then saying those out loud, feeling them, like having a hand on your heart as you're saying them, and then really doing like a gratitude statement at the end, and then marinating on that for like 30 seconds so that you're really your head's taking it in. I think then that is going to help you. We already know scientifically it shows you can make changes in 21 to 30 days. You start cultivating new habits. And
Yeah.
that's one of the important things to remind people is that negative experiences and negative thoughts are like Velcro in the brain. They just stick
Hmm.
because those are the things our brain goes, oh, I better remember that horrible insult so I can survive. Our brain is built to survive, not necessarily to thrive. But we can turn on these thriving centers in our brain. And I say, because positive experiences are like two fried eggs on a Teflon pan. They just slide right off there. And so
Right. Yeah.
if we want to give them some stickability, is what I call it. If we want to give them some stickability, that means that we have to do the repetition in the other direction. We've got to give them some stay power so our brain goes, oh, that is important. Okay, I'm going to file that away. Great idea.
It is so crazy how we just really focus on if we get some feedback, the negative. And even if it's, we get 9 positive things and 1 negative thing, that's where our focus goes. It's so
Totally.
crazy how we're wired that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can be your own best friend. You can truly be, not just like people go, oh, just love yourself, be your own best friend. It's not that easy, after 3 decades in the personal development and mental health field, I know, it takes effort and it's the best game in town. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. And you will start seeing those improvements. Some people come back to my office and just a little tweak. I've had couples come back to my office and all they changed in a week after coming in total turmoil, what they changed was saying 3 things that they appreciated about each other before they went to sleep. And coming back that next week, and I'm like, who are these people?
Wow.
They developed this new habit. And I think they're the shortest people I ever had in couples therapy. I mean, they were in and out in 3 months and really made the changes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Stephanie, we have to talk about your latest book, Becoming Fierce. I like the title. It sounds kind of like Quiet and Strong. So
Yeah,
tell us
yeah,
what
yeah,
fierce
yeah.
fierce means and maybe what it doesn't mean.
Yeah, thank you. Because people hear fierce and they think, oh, aggressive, assertive, I'm fierce. And to me, truly, fierce is, if you look up the definition, part of it is fiery, and it's that fiery, passionate, purpose filled energy that we all have inside of us. And it is being more authentically, becoming as authentic as you can so that you are living your life in full expression of you. If your audience looks up the cover, it's got this lotus flower and it's really beautifully decorated and has these flames behind it. So it's beauty and fierce. It's this beautiful part of us. And I think when we're in touch with that, again, these are the things that change our lives and change others' lives. And so, yeah, that's what that becoming fierce is about.
All right. And how'd you come up with that?
Well, interestingly, when I was being interviewed, Karen Curry Parker has a podcast, and I think it's called Quantum. I used to think it was Quantum Conversations, but I think it's Quantum Revolution. I don't quote me on this. Look up Karen Curry Parker. She is amazing in the area of human design. But she had me on her podcast talking about my first book, The Spark. And at the end of the interview, towards the end, she says, "So what's next for you, Stephanie?" And I said, "Well, I think I must have a new book coming through because I'll be stopped at a stoplight and I'm writing down little ideas on scraps of paper or, little ideas coming through." Well, we get done with the interview and she says, "Okay, Stephanie, I need to let you know my business partner and I own a publishing house and we'd like to publish your next book." I mean, that's how it happened. And so the next day she set up a meeting for me with Michelle Van de Pass, who is her business partner. And as I'm having this conversation with her, Michelle says, "My God, Stephanie," I'm telling her my story and what I want to write about. She says, "My God, Stephanie, you're fierce. You are fierce." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's it. The book is Becoming Fierce." And I woke up that morning in the middle of the night. It was 1:15 and wrote the outline. I mean, it just came through. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is it."
Yeah, it's amazing when things happen like that.
Yeah.
What did she mean by that you were fierce?
I think because, and I talk about it in the book, like my parents would always say, "You're the unsinkable Molly Brown." For those of you who know the reference, it's to the Molly Brown and the Titanic, who survived the Titanic. And I think I've had some very difficult, challenging things that happened in my life. I mean, the childhood thing, yeah, that was very tough. And obviously took a long time for me to overcome it as I was growing. But even in our adult lives, we have challenges, we have things that happen. People in that I knew in my very intimate circle having suicide attempts, things that really rocked my world through my life. And yet it's that ability to keep saying, okay, even after I go through grief, even after I go through this challenge, even after I'm brought to my knees at times. I talk in the film about my daughter's 10-year struggle with drug addiction, alcohol and drug addiction, and things that truly brought me to my knees in life. And I talk about in this Becoming Fierce, the power of surrender. And what a duality. And the chapter is called The Duality of Surrender because people think, oh, it's waving the white flag or it's being a coward and giving up, but it couldn't be further from the truth. It's really standing in the reality that you can't solve it all. You can't do it all. And when I try to push my will, it doesn't work. So surrender is really an act of courage to say, okay, something more divine than me, something that has a higher mind than me, I'm surrendering this to you. You work through me. And wow, that's when the miracles happen.
Is there anything else you want people to know about your book, about Becoming Fierce?
Yeah, it's not just about me for sure. I mean, it's very much formatted like my first book. It has more personal stories than the first one for sure. And it's got lots of research at the end of every chapter. There are exercises in take a moment that help integrate whatever you've learned in that chapter into your own life so that you're doing some of the written practices or you're doing meditation or doing whatever it is that helps really bring this to life for you. And I've got experts, people that I've interviewed over the last, I'm going into my 6th year now, phenomenal minds, again, these brilliant minds and serving hearts that are in our world. And then other people that I've met, there's a chapter in Fierce, Loving Fiercely, where, this woman whose husband got deported and for the last 15 years has kept that love alive. He's not able to move back. He's in El Salvador. He cannot move back to the States. What that kind of unconditional, fierce love is about. There's things in the book about how it's clearing up your relationship with power, how we play small, and how we can have certain ideas about what power is, and then how to bring ourselves a sense of true empowerment. And I think towards the end too, David, one of the things that was important for me is talking about healing the gap between us. With all the division, with all the conflict that we've been seeing in our world, how important it is to really know some of the tools of how do we get on the same side with someone. It doesn't mean we agree with them, but how do we, I always say, take this 18-inch journey from our head down into our heart so that we can have open-hearted conversations with others, where the goal is connection and understanding, not about who's right.
So, Stephanie, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to today?
Gosh, not that I can think of, David. I love talking to you. You're just so fun to interview and to be interviewed by. Just really appreciate you having me on your show. This has been great.
All right. Well, of course, where can people find out more about you and your film and your books and your podcast?
Yeah, so if they go right now to stephaniejames.world, stephaniejames.world, I have a free gift for everyone, and they can just plop in their name and email, and they will get 3 ways to start your morning off right. Really, these beautiful priming techniques so that you're coming into your day in the best heart, mind, spirit possible. And if someone's interested in the event, I have to look up. The link is not in my. It's not in my on my website, but you can go to stephanie-james.mykajabi.com. Kajabi. stephanie-james.mykajabi.com.
Awesome. I will put all of that in the show notes. And of course, you can check out the podcast where I was on Stephanie's show. That was a great conversation too. Thanks again, Stephanie. It's been a great time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you too.
Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts, links to social media, and other items. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link to the show notes. There's so many great things about being an introvert, so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.